All right, so we've gone over all the way down to Article 3. All right, so we're going to go into Article 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4, 5, 6, 7. And Article 4 reads, the earnest desire we have not to injure our fellow subjects in Great Britain, Ireland, or the West Indies induces us to suspend a non-exportation until the 10th day of September 1775, at which time, if the said acts and parts of acts of the British Parliament hereinafter mentioned and not repealed, we will not directly or indirectly export any merchandise or commodity whatsoever to Great Britain, Ireland, or the West Indies, except rice to Europe. I'm gonna read it again. Article 4 reads, the earnest desire we have not to injure our fellow subjects in Great Britain, Ireland, or the West Indies induces us to suspend a non-exportation until the 10th day of September 1775, at which time, if the said acts and parts of acts of the British Parliament hereinafter mentioned and not repealed, we will not directly or indirectly export or any merchandise or commodity whatsoever to Great Britain, Ireland, or the West Indies, except to Europe, except rice to Europe. Now, does anyone know what this means? Does anyone have an idea of what this means? Why were they their subjects, right? Because you got to remember we was taught that we over here, right? We was taught that we were brought over here, right, as slaves. That's number one. And then we was taught that we were the subjects of Great Britain, right? Now in here, it's now in here, Article 4 says that we are fellow subjects, and our fellow subjects are in a certain location, right? And the fellow subjects are in Great Britain. So how did we become fellow subjects to the people in Great Britain?
Islam, greetings, Temple 2.
Islam.
This brother Sidney L, the house of El by way of North Carolina. We, couple of things we have to keep in mind is, is the throne of King James. The throne of King James was king over Ireland, Great Britain, and Scotland. So when we look at Great Britain and us being the subjects, we're dealing with the slave masters. And Amexem, people that were descendants of Amexem, in today's terms, Africa, wasn't the only ones. Definitely some of the subjects out of Ireland. And this is still dealing with foreign trade in commerce, because if you remember, about 30 years after that date that they're giving, 1810, with the things that they had voted in place and signed off on about commerce and the wealth of the land. So a lot of things that they started growing, that they was trading, they had put a halt to it, except for rice. The rice that they say that they would send to Europe. So that was still a stronghold, because the next year, 1775 and 1776 was the signings of the Declaration of Independence. So it still was a stronghold going on at that time. You know, when it says induces us to suspend a non-exportation. What does non-exportation mean? That means, to me, that means that's saying that they was not going to ship or deliver anything to Great Britain, Ireland, or the West Indies. So when you look at Great Britain and Ireland, you know, we're talking about the slave masters and foreign trade. What they foreign traded for commerce was sugar, rum, candles, things that was non-perishable, even fares that they will be able to load up and ship. And if I'm wrong, you know, let me know. But then where it says we would not directly or indirectly export any merchandise or commodity whatsoever to Great Britain and Ireland or to the West Indies, except rice to Europe. So they was putting a freeze on shipping anything of value. Anything of value, they was not shipping. Anything that they used in trade for commerce, they was not shipping. Islam?
Islam, anyone else?
No, Sister K, I would like to know where to locate the articles, these particular articles.
I put them in the book nook. So if you look in there, they're in there. The articles of association on Mighty Networks, and then also I can put a link. Hold on, let me put a link in the chat.
So I can go in my Mighty Networks and look in the book nook and get these articles out.
Yep, and you can download them.
Islam.
Islam. Yep. As the brother Sidney Ill was describing, this definitely was, again, the Articles of Association. The association was a business, right? It was a farmers association who created a union. They unionized themselves. And that's what the intolerable acts was about. Right, the intolerable acts that they talk about in 1774, the intolerable acts that came out, these were the demands of the union. Right, when you look at a union today, doesn't a union has demands, correct?
Islam.
Islam. I mean, a union is there to be able to protect you from abuses from the employers, right? Right.
Correct.
So you can have fair wages, you know, the correct amount of breaks, the correct amount of vacation time, sick leave, family medical leave, bonuses, raises, you know, not allowing the employer to just treat you any type of way and say anything to you. All right, this is what the union is supposed to be there for, right? So you have the association, which is the business. And then later on, the business then now unionizes itself to no longer be abused by King George, his Britannic Majesty. Y'all see how they really have played with our minds? We really was taught that articles of association and the articles of confederation, perpetual union, and the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution for the United States of America. We were taught that these were actually countries. These are corporations, businesses. How did we get to the point where we are today, where we allow a business to dictate to us how we going to actually live our lives?
Oh man.
Here it is, you got a business that goes around the entire world and torment.
Change.
A business, the Articles of Association is a articles for a business to operate.
Islam.
Islam. The union was to protect the business. Wow. Brother, E. Rice Bay, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, that's why when we read over different articles, not these articles here, in different books of history, the United States is known as the Union States. Islam.
Islam. I put the link in the chat as well. Someone else was trying to say something. Okay. All right. So I want to go and pull up this book. And the title of this book is History, I believe it's History and Discovery. Let's see. Yeah. History of the Discovery and Settlement of the Valley of the Mississippi by the three great European powers. Spain, France, and Great Britain. Spain, France, and Great Britain. And the subsequent, this means that it's continual. The subsequent occupation, settlement, and extension of civil government by the United States until the year 1846. This is volume 1. This is volume 1. All right, remember they wasn't supposed to go past the proclamation line of 1774. It says, Great Britain, the jealous rival of France. Great Britain, the jealous rival of France. Why would Great Britain be jealous of France? Next, extended her colonies into the Western country, encroaching upon the discoveries and possessions of France until finally, by force of arms, she expelled the French power from Canada and the Mississippi and appropriated to her own use the whole eastern half of the valley, including the Floridas. The progress of her colonies west of the Alleghenies, right? This is the Appalachian, the Alleghenies Mountains. Her fierce contest with the French and their savage allies, and her subsequent occupancy of the country furnished the subjects of the third book, or the Great Britain in the Valley. At the dismemberment of Louisiana in 1763, what happened to Louisiana in 1763? Anyone else? (1763), Morris, come on. 1763.
Wouldn't that involve the Louisiana Purchase?
It does involve the Louisiana Purchase.
That was the purchase of land.
Well, they didn't really purchase the land. There was no Louisiana Purchase. Really was a couple of blocks down in. It was a couple of blocks down in New Orleans. So we don't know how they got all of it.
Islam. Trickery.
Sure did take it, didn't they? Islam. So Great Britain officially conceded Spanish ownership of Louisiana February 1763 in one of the series of treaties ending the French and Indian War. Right? It's called the French. Anyone know why it was called the French and Indian War?
French and Indian War.
Mhm.
Enlighten me, please.
Because it was fought between the quote unquote French and the Indians or Native Americans who owned the land.
Exactly. It was fought between the French and the Indians who owned the land, right? These were family members. These were family members. Y'all recall, remember the in the same book, when I was reading about a while ago, I was reading about the Treaty of Camp Charlotte. And in that treaty, you have Lord Dunmore, who is the Moor who's representing King George. And you had Krystal, who was representing the Indian or the American Indians. And when they came together, they began to cry really hard because they had been fighting each other for so long, right? Again, you don't have two people that don't know each other, who's especially two men who don't know each other, that's gonna cry like that if they weren't family members, if they didn't know each other. See, even here, right? This is chapter 8, says Louisiana under the Western Company after the Natchez Massacre, extermination of the Natchez tribes from 1729 to 1733. Right, constantly wanting to erase us from our land. Right, you got Louisiana under the royal governors until the close of the Chickasaw War, 1733 to 1741. Condition of Louisiana from the close of the Chickasaw War until the termination of the French Dominion from 1741 to 1764. Expulsion of the French from the Ohio region, Indian hostiles until the close of Pontiac's War. (1757 to 1764). Chief Pontiac.
Islam.
Islam, go ahead.
Islam, that's Chief Pontiac or the automobile Pontiac.
That's who the automobile named themselves after.
Islam. So this is a list of the Native American and American Indian War with the Spanish, the French, and Great Britain that brought about some of the unions that Great Britain and French backed out on. Islam.
Islam. So these are this is the takeover that Great Britain, Spain, and France did to the American Indians. Islam. And this is all being done in the name of corporations. Right? We've been taught that it was done by way of countries, but it's always done by way of corporations, not actual countries. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. we've been taught that, you know, countries go to war. Right? We see us going to war with, let's say, the war Iraq, right? Now, we're not understanding that it wasn't a war against Iraq that we were actually fighting. That was just the name of the war. But what we was fighting really, what they was fighting, I should say, was really to take over other corporations, not the country itself. Like, it's the corporations within the countries. It's on. So Iraq, that would be oil. Iraq will be oil. Afghanistan, that would be the poppy seeds and the poppy fields. It's on. So here we are, Lord Dunmore's Indian War, extension of the Western settlements from the Treaty of Camp Charlotte to the Declaration of Independence, 1774 to 1776. Argument. The Indians reluctantly assent to boundaries claimed by the Treaty of Fort Stanwix. Outrages of the lawless white men provoke Indian resentment. Explorers and land jobbers. Rumor of the Indian depredations circulated by them. Alarm excited among explorers. Captain Krystal advises violence and heads a party which murders some Indians above Wheeling and at Captain Creek. Great House leads another party against the Indians at Yellow Creek. Other murderers preceding these murder of Bald Eagle. Now, Bald Eagle was a chief. Isn't it illegal to murder a bald eagle? And isn't that a crime, y'all, to murder? If you murder a bald eagle, and you going to prison, ain't you? Islam. Murder of bald eagle, the chief. 5 families at Bulltown. Indian revenge commences upon the traitors. Consternation on the frontier. Settlements abandoned. Union Station near Laurel Hill established. Hostile incursions of Indians. Defensive measures under Lord Dunmore. The Wappatomic campaign under General McDonald. Surveys and explorations in Kentucky suspended in 1774. Daniel Boone conducts surveyors to old settlements. General Lewis marches down the Kanawha, learns the change of Dunmore's plans, the severe battle of the Point, loss of the Virginians and of the Indians. Cornstalk, the king of the of the Shawnees. Cornstalk, the king of the Shawnees. Lord Dunmore's advance to the Skota. Camp Charlotte fortified. Operations against the Shawnese towns. Negotiations with the Indians. General Lewis advances to the Scotia. He indigently obeys Dunmar's orders to halt. Treaty of Camp Charlotte open. Speech to Cornstalk of Logan. Stipulations of this treaty. Peace proclaimed January 7th, 1775. Peace proclaimed January 7th, 1775. Suspicions against Lord Dunmore. Immigration revives into the West or in the West. Other surveys and settlements. Settlements on the Holston and Clinch in 1775. Preparations in Virginia and North Carolina for the occupancy of Kentucky. Patrick Henry and others. Colonel Henderson and others. Treaty of Watauga. Colonel Henderson Land Company. Preparations for establishing the colony of Transylvania. Boone, pioneer of the colony to Kentucky River. Boonesboro erected. Colonel Colin Henderson leads out of his colony. Boone leads another in the fall. Plan of Boonesboro. Logan's Fort built. Company's land office. Proprietary government established in Transylvania, 1775. Acts of legislature, second session. The company memorializes the Federal Congress. The company memorialized the Federal Congress. Opposition to the proprietary government. Transylvania Republic merges into the state government of Virginia. Settlements begin to form the north side of Kentucky River. Harrod Station erected in 1776. Colin Harrod introduces the first families from the Mongolia. They brought the Mongols over here. Switched them out, put them in our positions. Declaration of America Independence. Indian hostiles begin in Kentucky. Preparations for defense. Major George Rogers Clark superintendents the militia organization. Y'all see what was going on? See how they just took over. So even the Revolutionary War, how they taught us, that's a lie. This is all that was going on in 1774 to 1776. This is what was going on. The takeover. And they brought the Mongoloids in, switched them out for us. And then they made a Declaration of American Independence. They changed the Americans. British occupancy of Florida in the Illinois country. Close of the British Dominion in the Mississippi Valley. They got rid of Britain. Argument, extent of Florida in the Illinois country under the British Dominion. English authority established in West Florida by Governor Johnston. Major Loftus appointed command of Illinois. His defeat above Tunica Bayou. Anyone know what Tunica Bayou is? It's right next to Angola, Louisiana. Tunica Bayou. And his death. Dissatisfaction of the French of West Florida. Population in 1764. Anglo-American immigrants. Immigration to Florida encouraged. Anglo-American immigration to Florida encouraged. Immigrants arrived from 1765 to 1770. Great increase of immigrants in 1773 to 1776. Settlements on east side of the Mississippi. British military posts in West Florida. Monopoly of trade by British traders. Immigration in 1775 to 1776. There was a lot of immigration that went on. Who was immigrating? Anyone? Who was immigrating?
Islam, what does the word immigration mean?
You know, it was mankind coming on in.
So where it says, the French of West Florida population in 1764, Anglo-American immigration to Florida was encouraged. What do they mean, Anglo-American?
What's an Anglo-American? Islam?
You're
Anglo-Saxon is who? Isn't Europe based on Anglo-Saxons?
it's really us though, for real.
So who is the Anglo-American?
Those were the ones that was born over here.
Oh, these are the
He said,
children.
oh,
These are the children of the first.
These are the children of the Anglo-Saxons, the Anglo-Americans.
Right,
okay, he talking that talk
17th
now.
century. Okay, and it says that the immigration to Florida was encouraged.
Encouraged.
And then the immigrants arrived from 1765 to 1790. Where did they arrive from?
That was her question.
Great increase of immigrants in 1773 to 1776.
Islam, I like how he just repackaged my
Yeah,
question.
that's what he do though.
Thank you, Sister Shamir.
That's why he
Where
your
did they
favorite.
immigrate from? I'm asking, where did they immigrate from? Just Great Britain? Where was they immigrating? Where was they doing all this traveling from?
Letting you know they come from somewhere else to take over this area.
They came from Great Britain.
Islam.
That's
They
what it
came from-
means.
they
right
came
here.
from-
He said that's what it
Settlements
means.
on the east side of the Mississippi, British military. Oh, okay. So this is more of the slave masters that was immigrating across the land after they fought the battles with the Indians to run the Indians off the land. Wow.
He paying attention. He following along.
Islam. Woo! This is the great takeover.
So at this time, this is during the Trail of Tears, or this after the Trail of Tears?
This is before the Trail of Tears. So
Okay,
look,
so
you gotta hold on, you gotta look at it, right? You had the three great powers of Europe: France, Great Britain, and Spain. That's how we were taken over.
Okay,
You
let me ask you a question.
you had 3 on 1.
Okay, you had
So
France.
they jumped us more. You know, you ever been in a fight and you got jumped before?
Of course, they jumped the Indians because they was greedy for the land. We know that part. We just trying to figure out who all was immigrating. And then
That's who was immigrating. The Anglo-Americans.
well, okay, Anglo-Americans. So
You
this
gotta
is plain.
you gotta remember, okay.
Okay.
So the let's go back to it. How did the Anglo-Saxons become the Anglo-Saxons?
Who consists of the Anglo-Saxon?
Why you keep re-asking the question after I ask the question?
I thought the Anglo-Saxon was the European.
How did they become the Anglo-Saxons? You're right. They are the Europeans. How did they're Great Britain who are the Europeans. Now, how did they become the Anglo-Saxons?
They mixed with the Spanish and the French.
Okay. Let's
there was one particular time when you told us there was one ruler or someone who ruled 2 nations at the same time. So is this that and the name was combined and he brought the 2 groups together?
That's right, Sister Shamir L. You had King Alfred, who united the Anglos, which was East Anglia, West Anglia, and Saxony. East and West Anglia and Saxony. So here's the Britons right here. Then you got the Frankish, right? This is the Frankish coast, Saxon coast, Anglia over here. So you had them, then you had Spain. At that time, Spain was the largest empire. Spain was the largest empire. Remember, Spain was also over here. So you have Spain over there, you have Spain over here. You pretty much have Spain all over the world because Spain, we talk about Spain, we're talking about Moors.
Oh.
We're talking about Moors.
Right.
So we had our own people, right?
Right.
Conspired against us.
So
you gotta remember, right? So in the Revolutionary War, who did the United States of America borrow money from?
Morocco.
Again, in the Revolutionary War, who did the United States of America borrow money from?
Britain.
Again, if they were fighting against Britain.
Oh, okay. I thought they were. Okay.
All is well.
Morocco. That's where Morocco became the first allied country.
It's Islam. Who
Morocco became the first
did
Arab country in 1774, was it? Or was it 1787?
that was to trade, brother. Remember, it was a corporation, a trading corporation. They recognized them in trade. Let's see.
Well, if it wasn't Britain and it wasn't the Moors, it had to be Spain. I mean, it was only three real major nations that were in that kind of position during that time. I mean, you were talking about it could have been France, I guess.
France was one.
The Netherlands, Islam.
You said what? What was the other one?
The Netherlands.
Dutch. That's right.
Dutch. I forgot about them.
Yep. Right. Well, remember one of the founding fathers. What was his last name? Let's name some of the founding fathers.
You got me.
Let's name some of them. You got George Washington, right?
Adams, Hamilton,
Hamilton,
Jefferson,
Shakespeare.
Buchanan. Was it Buchanan one of them? I thought it was a Buchanan in there.
Madison.
It's another one. They always
Did
talk
we
about
forget Franklin? Did I hear Franklin?
all about the Benjamins. Franklin.
I thought we mentioned him first.
Franklin, all about the Benjamins, right? Now Franklin, remember he was Frankish.
Islam is
French.
Is that where Benjamin Franklin and them got together and did the diplomatic policy for democracy? In
Declaration of Independence.
Islam, gratitude, sister. Declaration of Independence. Right. So again, before they declared their independence, up here, I just read that where is it at? They murdered Bald Eagle. That was very pivotal.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. I do apologize if it takes us a lot out the way.
Don't go all the way out the way. Go ahead.
Okay, but we're discussing. I want to bring in the mapping of that time era. The mapping said the New Louisiana Purchase up across the top of the Midwest, and down along the bottom, as it was speaking a few paragraphs back, where it spoke along the Mississippi. The Mississippi, from California to Mississippi, and from Mississippi over to Georgia was New Mexico. But also around across the top on that map, it said Americanos along with Mexican Moors. So during this time period that they was fighting Indians to put them off the land, that was more than one battle that was going on, because they was battling the Native American and Great Britain at the same time. And that's where the French and the Moors and the Spanish union. That's why Morocco have a flag with the red flag with the 5-pointed green star with the French flag up in the left corner. That was the unions in the mid 17th century. And then they changed the mapping after acquiring and splitting up the land after that. Islam?
It's Islam, brother. So Bald Eagle was a chief of the Lenape, the Delaware's Moors. Right, the
Those
Delaware.
words come up a lot in
Yeah.
your teaching. Yeah.
Because the Delaware's Moors, they were, okay, so the Delaware's Moors included the Pequot that was further up north, like Maine, New York, that area. It also consisted of the Moors down south that were in the Carolinas, right? It encompassed a lot of different tribes and bands as well, as far as the Delaware's Moors. So when we talk about there were several, the brother had mentioned the Trail of Tears. There were several Trails of Tears, right? One of the first major Trails of Tears was what I was just reading about when they were coming westward. They were 1775, 1774, 1776, they were already moving westward. So the whole thing about, they had, declared their sovereignty from Britain, and, they were just destitute, and, 4th of July, all of that is romanticism. They had already begun moving on us. They had already violated passing the Allegheny. So here it is, the 2016 Delaware Code, Title 29, State Government, Chapter 1, Jurisdiction and Sovereignty. Jurisdiction and sovereignty. For the Moors who say that we're not sovereign, jurisdiction and sovereignty. Subsection 106, Lenape Indian Tribe of Delaware recognition. Legislative findings. The General Assembly finds all of the following. The Lenape Indian Tribe of Delaware, referred to as the tribe in this section, has an unbroken history of hundreds of years of settlement and continued residency in the vicinity of the town of Cheswold in Kent County. Members of the tribe preserved, displayed, and manifested close cultural ties with one another by conducting themselves in such a social and economic manner so as to identify themselves as being culturally and ethnically distinct. The tribe can date their ancestral ties as far back as the early 1700s. The tribe was formerly known as what? The Moors.
Wow.
And for many decades of the 20th century, state documents such as driver's license designated the tribe's race with an M.
Mm.
Mm. Mm. Mm. So when Moors say, oh, we're not supposed to have our own driver's license, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? When the Moors say that we're not sovereign, the title of the code is jurisdiction and sovereignty. Designating
Islam.
that. Go ahead, Islam.
Islam. That's really kind of wow. Because, you know, number 3, but number 2, the members of the tribe preserved, displayed, and manifested close cultural ties and conducted themselves in such a social and economic manner as to identify themselves as being culturally and ethnically distinct. And they trace their ancestral ties back to the 1700s. That's really wild, because that's separating themselves. That's separating themselves from all those that immigrated. Because if you immigrated, you can't really trace your ties, because your
Say
ties
it
lead.
again.
If you immigrated, you can't trace your ties. What you gonna trace them to? The ocean? If you immigrated, that means you come to this land by water. You come to this land by water. And see, everything that we're studying are the footsteps. These are the footsteps of those that immigrated, because we have to remember, according to the laws of 1790, they had to be on the land for 2 years before they could file for citizenship as white free men. Why was it written like that? White free men. What was they free from? So this is just one of many tribes. This is the Delaware Lenape tribe. Says they trace their ancestor dates far back to the early 1700s. They was already here. And we got script of our entitlement. That's what it means right there. The tribe was formerly known as the Moors. And for many decades of the 20th century, state documents such as driver license designated the tribe's race with an M for Moors, going back to the early 1700s. Why? And then that's probably why Delaware recognized as the first state. The first state.
Say it again, Mo.
That's why Delaware recognized as the first state. The first state. Now there's something. Because in today's time, Delaware is kept white. that's something there. They have to recognize Moors in the state of Delaware dating back to the 17th century. As a Moor, that make me kind of hungry. Because the Moors in Delaware eat. They eat.
Someone said the Moors in Delaware eat.
Doggone right, they eat. It's already, it's telling you they eat right there. The tribe was formerly known as the Moors. The Lenape Indian tribe of Delaware was formerly known as the Moors. That could trace their ancestor ties back to the early 1700s. That means they can almost look in 1699 and ask, who y'all asking for? Who y'all asking for? We trace our ties back to the early 17th century. Who y'all asking for? 1699, who y'all asking for?
The Moors.